I'm Jim Collison, live from the Gallup studios here in Omaha, Nebraska. This is Gallup's Theme Thursday, Season 3, recorded on June 8th, 2017. Theme Thursday is a Gallup webcast series that dives deep into the CliftonStrengths themes one at a time, and today's theme is woo. If you have questions, comments, or contributions during this webcast, we do have a live chat room available for you right below the main video. And if you just look down there, there's a chat room. Bottom left-hand corner is the login button. You can't miss it. Just click on that. Choose the guest account. Put your name in where it says guest. It says guest and some numbers. Take that out. Put your name in so we know who you are. And then log in, and that way you can leave comments. We'll be watching the chat room while we're going today, so your questions can be put in there as well. If you're listening to the recorded version or have questions about custom strengths coaching solutions for small, medium, or large organizations, you can send us an email, coaching@gallup.com. Don't forget to visit the Gallup Strength Center, just gallupstrengthcenter.com. For all your CliftonStrengths coaching resources and training needs, you can also catch the video now, streaming and downloadable audio. There's every imaginable way, just about every imaginable way you can listen, I've made. So podcast, stream it on YouTube. You can listen on the phone. In fact, there's somebody listening on the phone right now. You can do it all. They'll view our resource page at coaching.gallup.com. Maika Leibbrandt is our host today. She's a workplace consultant here at Gallup. And Maika, always great to see you on a Theme Thursday, especially with woo. Welcome to Theme Thursday.
Thanks, Jim. How excited are you to finally get to talk about woo?
Super excited. Last season, season 2, if you haven't watched it, we have one of these for every, we have 2 of these now. This will be our 3rd. And we had to wait all the way to the end of the year last year to do this, Maika, and we get it mid-year, so I'm pretty excited.
Yeah, what a treat. It makes a difference when you go in alphabetical order by domain versus just alphabetical order. Twice we made woo wait until the end, and I don't think woo likes to wait, so this is going to be a great day.
We're wrapping up a domain, right? At this point, I think we're at the end.
Yeah, this will wrap up our look at leadership through influencing. So we're going to take a week off, and then we'll start again with that next domain, which is relationship building.
No, awesome. Well, hopefully everybody's downloaded the companion guide, and if you haven't, you can take a second to head out there and get that downloaded and print it out. We know it's the best way to kind of consume it. And so, Maika, let's dive in a little bit as we think about woo. Can you cover what we've got in the companion guide?
Yeah, I'll take us through just a brief definition of what woo really is, and then what it looks like in a leader. The first thing we need to remember about woo is it's a verb. It is something that you do. When you think about woo, I think about charisma, about magnetism, about that ability to really quickly make people feel comfortable. Or if you think about it as standing for something, WOO, winning others over. Folks with high woo enjoy that challenge of quickly meeting people and bringing them from that realm of someone you don't know to someone you would call a friend. They tend to be drawn to other people. They want to learn names, to ask questions, to find some common area of interest so that you're no longer strangers. And that experience is energizing. I think I first read my StrengthsFinder report. I have woo in my top 5, and I read something about woo like there are no strangers, just friends you haven't yet met. And that brings with us not only the great skill and the great ability to break the ice quickly, but also I think a belief system that there's some connection, some commonality that you can make with everybody that leaves you mutually more comfortable. And I think it's a fantastic theme, especially when you think about how do leaders with woo use it to influence others. So it does fall in that influencing domain, which again, leaders who are strong in influencing know how to take charge, how to speak up, how to make sure that their team is heard. Think about it as being a real comfortable voice for other people. So let's talk about it as a leader. As an individual, woo is about building my network, but as a leader, woo is about expanding our influence, building expertise through a network of skills. Think about, I actually taught a team session earlier this week, and I was the only person in the room who had woo. And so I joined in on one of the conversations. I was doing a great guided exercise, a great activity where we all walked around and just asked folks, hey, we get to pick one of their top 5 and then ask them a specific question. And one of the questions was, how does pick a theme help you get things done? And everybody who came to talk to me wanted to know about my woo. It's a fun word to say. It's an easy thing, I think, to quickly get a caricature or a stereotype in your head. It's certainly fun to be curious about woo. And the nice thing about it is folks with woo will probably tell you about it. So everybody asked me every question about woo. And I almost struggled with that question of how does woo help me get things done? And then I realized it was because I feel like my greatest resource is this network or this community that I build. And it might be, in many cases, the theme that motivates me to do anything. It's that constant awareness that you have an effect on other people, and it can be a positive one. It's also that awareness that there are people out there who you can bring into your network, who you can win over. And so you think about it as a leader, woo equips leaders with that ability not to have to know it all yourself, but to invest in people who can expand your realm of expertise. To think about, maybe you're not the expert in everything, but you know where to go, and you can quickly assemble this team of superheroes or point people in the right direction to answer any of their questions or address any challenges. As a leader, woo gives you magnetic attraction. It means that people tend to be attracted to your organization, attracted to your team, attracted to the spark that you create when you walk into a room. It also means that it attracts you to others. Folks with woo are constantly aware of people who they have yet to win over, people who maybe are a little bit tougher to crack, or people who they just haven't had exposure to yet. And that can attract you beyond the familiar. Think about that as a benefit of being able to notice new opportunities in business or for your team or even for your family or your community that other people might not even see, but also to quickly and excitedly pursue those new relationships and those new opportunities. It's about building comfort. Also, if you think within your organization, I don't want us to take away the idea that woo is just always flighty and on to the next relationship. Think about what woo provides for the people who count on it. So especially as a leader, think about if you're leading a community or a family or a team or an organization, you naturally make employees feel like they're at home. It's about that authentic social courage that can inspire the same in others. If people see that, hey, my leader is comfortable sitting down and, asking me what I did over the weekend or talking about that meal that they tried and failed, and they can just be that authentically normal and human, maybe I can do that too. I think in many ways, woo is about hospitality. It is about serving people by creating a sense of disarming comfort and creating that sense of authenticity. It's also about a sensitivity to the success of relationships. I don't know about you, Jim, and we'll talk to Rhonda here in a moment about this, but anytime I'm in a large group of people, especially if I'm leading a course, I tend to know who isn't quite on board with me. And it's almost like I've got this monitor of my impact and of my influence. And that can help me if I'm aware of that. And if I think about that strategically, it really can help me understand how are we doing. If I translate that into a business context, it gives me this great intuition of how well we're connecting with our customers, how well we're delighting and engaging our suppliers, and how well we're really meeting the needs of our followers. It's also about a diversity of connections. I think because woo is about social breadth, it creates this great diversity and inclusiveness because more in many ways is better. More connections feel better. The making of new connections is powerful. So it gives you this, and I stole this word by watching Kurt Liesfeld talk about it this morning on season 1. He uses the term social multiplicity. And that kind of ability to connect to a lot of different people, to a diverse audience of opinions or backgrounds might make other people uncomfortable, but it's something that you're drawn to, something that excites you. So step up to the plate and offer that as a talent. It's an energy creator in many ways. Now, woo doesn't have to be loud. I think a lot of times woo, it is most commonly paired with themes like communication. Very often it's paired with positivity. And in many ways, when it's paired with those, it looks overt. It looks bubbly. It looks loud. Woo doesn't have to be that way. Woo can also be the kid who shows up to every sporting event and knows every player's name and makes everybody comfortable when they're sitting there in the stands cheering on their team. It is that creator of energy. Think of how it feels when somebody knows you, when you feel truly seen by people. I think woo gives you the ability to know and see others. Woo tends to assume a positive social connection. When you think about that phrase, there are no strangers, only friends you haven't met yet, there's an incredible hopefulness to that. And it's assuming that, yes, I am going to meet this person and we're going to hit it off. And I haven't thought about the fact that maybe we won't. I think that comes from the fact that folks with woo like people. They genuinely like people. And therefore, they tend to be more likable. They tend to be able to pick up what's attractive and what's fun and what's unique about others. It's also, I think, thinking about how do you focus your woo, looking at those other themes that it comes with. Ask yourself how you make people feel like they matter. How do you make people feel like they're a part of something? What is the best language or the best nuance or the best way to, I think, identify and personalize your approach to people so that you can very quickly help them feel seen, help them feel heard, help them feel connected. The last thing I want to talk about before I introduce our guest today is those needs of followers. So I spent a little bit of time going through our strengths-based leadership book, and I highly recommend that. Whether you have woo or not, pick it up and look up your own themes. We do talk about these 4 needs across all 34 themes. Somebody with woo might build trust by helping people feel seen, helping people feel important. That might come just simply by getting really great at remembering names or at knowing social details. You could build trust by understanding which social details are people more willing to share more quickly and ask about those. A leader might build compassion through woo by demonstrating their love of people in general to show that you don't play favorites and to show that this is a constant talent of yours. It's consistent, it's not inauthentic. And that might mean fighting for what matters, thinking about social justice issues, or helping elevate a cause that you believe in that demonstrates that at your soul, you really just do like people. A leader with woo might create stability by helping people find stability in others. Again, back to that networking idea. You don't have to be the very best person at everything, but maybe you're the first person to connect to people who are going through a similar challenge. And finally, I love to talk about hope. A leader with woo might build hope or inspire hope by talking about the social impact of what we can expect. So if you are inspiring a group to aggressively pursue a goal, don't just talk about the goal, talk about how it's going to feel when we get there. Talk about how we're going to get there all together, or talk about what kind of an impact it's going to have on our community, on the rest of our team, and how it's going to help energize and inspire and help, again, help people be seen, be named, be a part of something. Pretty cool when you think about woo, not just as the life of the party, but really as an energizer that can help us get to some fantastic results. Speaking of great results, it's my pleasure to bring in our guest today who just completely espouses woo in every possible way. Rhonda Knight Boyle, welcome to the program.
Thank you. Thank you. Woohoo! All woos have to say that, you know.
I get that a lot. I get people who just kind of want to sing or shout the name there. Rhonda, you're an author, you're a coach, you're a business leader. Can you tell us just a little bit about yourself?
Sure. I am Rhonda Boyle, and I live in Oklahoma City, and I have lived all over the country. My husband and I have moved quite a bit, and I have 2 daughters who are 24 and 26 soon, and a grand boy who I absolutely adore. And yeah, and I got me some woo.
Well, thank you. Thank you for sharing your woo with us. Can you think about how woo shows up in your leadership?
Sure. I think that probably the most important thing that I have been able to do with my woo is build community everywhere I go. As I mentioned, my husband and I have moved around actually 6 times in 26 years. And everywhere I go, I already build community before I get there. I get online, I find out exactly where we need to plug in, I start to plug in ahead of time. And so that's how I'm leading my family through transition into our new location. And so when we get there, we plug in the first week. You know, I've always had things for us to do, places to go that I sort of have used my woo to make those connections and scout out, where we're going to try to plug in so that we can get comfortable as quickly as we can as family. So that's one way that I have been able to use my woo.
It sounds like a great example of stability. And I don't think I would have reached for woo to answer the question of how do you help people through change.
Mhm.
But seeing that, it's like you create a net, a net or a network, but it feels like a safety net so that it's not quite so difficult.
It is. And I'm not even kidding when I tell you that the first week, boots on the ground in the new town, we have coffee dates and play dates and, places that we're going with new people that we get to meet. So
A lot of people might hear that and just feel totally intimidated by that idea. How do you plan for something like that? What's your process?
well, you mean how do I get
How do you
plugged in
make
that
sure that
quickly?
there are yeah.
Yeah. Well, Facebook, I was born for Facebook. And before Facebook, there were always, I can't remember what they were called back then, message boards and through Yahoo or through AOL and, email places where you could plug in. And so I have been able to very quickly find community wherever we go. And I just am relentless about it.
I like this idea of community as something you can search for.
Mhm.
What do you do when you show up and you think it's going to be a great connection and it's not there?
Well, I don't know that I've had that. I usually am able to find a connection somewhere. However, there have been those groups that I show up at, and it's like there's not the feel. Like sometimes the group will be closed. You can tell there's an energy, that you can sense that they have been together for a long time and they're not really open to having new people come in. And that's kind of hurtful for a woo. We get our little feelings hurt. However, we do have the ability to keep moving until we find, our tribe, so to speak, and woos have multiple communities. We don't usually just have one. Like Relator has one or two communities, and we have major communities, like lots of different communities. So, it's just a matter of moving on until we find that comfort level where we feel accepted and where we get that spark and that energy. I get a zing that like zings up my arms when I realize that I've made a connection with somebody. And don't you get that too, Maika? I mean,
I totally do. Yeah, it sounds crazy, but it makes sense.
no, it's like a thrill when you know that you've made a connection. You've looked in somebody's eyes and you know that you've somehow made a connection or touched them in some way. It's a thrill and it gives us energy. And I don't know, the people who are watching today may have to have a nap after this podcast, because between you and me and Jim, the three of us with woo, this energy that we have, and woo has an energy. I think all of the talents have an energy. And I believe in my experience that woo energy is always on. If it's not on, there's something wrong. Y'all need to be checking on us.
Mhm.
We may have a fever or, whatever. But I know that people have told me my whole life, if they could just bottle my woo, they'd make $1 million. And I'd love them to tell me how to do that, frankly.
Distribute your talents in a bottle.
That's right.
Rhonda, can you tell us about what other talents you've got there in your top 5 and how you see maybe those contributing to that energy?
Absolutely. I have ideation, number 1. Woo is my number 2. Number 3, I have maximizer. So this gives me maximized woo. And then I have communication. And my 5th talent is activator. And by the way, let me just mention that Jim Collison and I, we share 8 of our top 10, don't we, Jim?
What?
Yeah, and nearly in order. I mean, we're 4 out of 5. So she has ideation 1 and I have a ranger 1. And then it's exactly the same for the top 5. Gets a little sketchy in 6 through 10, but we share a lot. Ideation for me is a little bit lower. And I think you also have, do you have a ranger?
A ranger's my first executing talent that comes in at 19.
Yeah. Okay.
So not much.
Share many of those pieces. Rhonda, I did want to say, as you were talking about when we talk about energy, I do really want to say though that it's, since woo's an influencing theme, we don't come, we often say, woo gets kind of marked as life of the party, right? We use the term party, but it can also be the most influential in the room. So when you're trying to get things done, I think this is what's really important, right? Is you can lean on those woo individuals to get things done. Here at Gallup, oftentimes when we put big groups together, we will strategically place woos at tables. So there might be 20 tables, and we'll find 20 people who have woo, and we'll separate them because they tend to gravitate towards one another. You separate them, and they'll actually influence the conversation. And so I don't want to miss on this point that you said there, because I think it's really, really important. We see this as a strong influencer. And so don't always just think life of the party. Think influencer in the room. Who can move people in directions to get things done? And in teams and at work, oftentimes that's super important. And sometimes we take that little negative bias, right, towards woo, and we're like, oh, they're just the party people. Well, yeah, we do like to party. We do like to have a good time, right, from that standpoint. But Rhonda, can you think of, you kind of mentioned it, you go and you're in a new city or a new location, or you're doing something new. Can you think about a time, though, when you needed to influence a group and move them in a certain direction? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, I think that it's so natural that we don't even notice how we're doing it specifically, right? And it is a matter of one of the ways that we do influence is that we make other people feel welcome. It's like we go out and we take energy away from people, and then we go give it to other people. So it's all about sharing.
The Robin Hood of woo.
Yes. So, I mean, I'm not even kidding when I tell you that some people need a nap. Like, if they've got empathy, they may need a nap after they've been around me, because, and I don't even feel it. I don't know about you guys, but I don't physically feel the energy that I give off. I don't feel that I'm giving any energy off. But other people, absolutely, when I walk in the room or I'm in the front of the room, they physically feel it, depending upon their talent, of course, they physically feel that energy. And so one of the things that we get to pay attention to is other people, and then dialing that energy up or down. And that comes with maturity. Being able to control that energy. I remember once being with a client who I was in sales back years and years ago. And I went to this client, and he would never give me his business. And I could not figure it out until I took a class that talked about, temperaments and so forth. And I recognized that he was completely different than I am. So he would have had talents like intellection and analytical and deliberative, which I married one like that, by the way. Anyway, when I went in after this class and I visited with that client, I literally sat on my hands. Like I just tucked them up under my chair, and I lowered my voice and changed the way that I spoke. And for the first time ever, he gave me business. And so when we're using our influence in, out and about in the marketplace, we have the opportunity through growth and development to actually modulate, I guess, and use that woo energy in specific ways, depending upon who we're talking to. And that requires maturity and really paying attention to who's in front of you.
That's so great. What I love most about this is there was that constant pursuit of another behind that, and it didn't just look like I'm going to party them, or I'm going to make them happy, or I'm going to energize them. It looked like I'm going to be thoughtful about how I pursue this person. I'm going to be thoughtful about how I affect them. And I think that is a part of woo that often we don't understand, or that perhaps gets taken for granted. It is really close attention paid to how do you build the right kind of rapport.
Exactly. Right. And building the right kind of network too, because I think, and Maika, you and I talked about this earlier, that woos often when they're younger, they're just people collectors, and they collect indiscriminately. Just however many people that they can get a hold of, in their network. And then they don't do anything, and they don't remember who they are. And and I've been guilty of that too. However, as I've gotten older and I've really started to learn and develop this talent and have become a leader, I've learned how to really be clear on where I'm putting someone in a network or where they fit within my network. And I think that's the power of the network of Woo, because, we have so many communities, and then being able to cross over with them and build bridges between those communities. We get to learn how to do that, but we have to know where people fit if we're going to be able to do that.
It's like beyond the breaking of the ice, beyond that connection. How do you honor people after you've won them over?
Exactly. So yeah.
That's great. Rhonda, I constantly come back to your story of what it was like to move to a brand new place when you first came to Oklahoma City. Can you tell us a little bit about what your Woo did in that situation?
I can. Because of technology, thankfully, I was able to go on Facebook and find networking events that I could go to. And actually, there was about a 10-month stretch where my husband had moved here before I arrived, and I got to come a couple times. And I was actually already at networking events before I moved to the city. And that's just, and I have input number 6. So that was going out and doing my research and finding those places that I could plug in, and then testing and trying a few places until I found, the one where I felt I could be, most effective or comfortable. So.
Was that ever frightening or scary?
No, never. Never. I mean, when I was in sales, one of the things that I did most effectively was cold calls. I could walk in, with my ideation and my activator, I could walk in absolutely cold someplace and go, "Hey, I have arrived," and I could quickly build rapport and then ask a couple of key questions. And I could also notice if the time was not appropriate and I needed to back off. Let me just leave my card. But I could make 25, 30 cold calls drop in a week. It was not uncommon for me to be able to do that. And so for me to move to a new city, and again, I've done this 6 times, when we've moved, to show up and make a coffee appointment and, hey, I'd love to meet with you. Before, when I moved to Oklahoma City, I had been here several times and been to events. I remember going to like some type of event. I can't even remember what kind of conference I came to even before I moved here, because it's that important for me to have people. So I can't move to a new city and then twiddle my thumbs, and try to figure out where I'm going to fit. I've got to start figuring that out immediately. So I think my activator probably helps me with that too. Because when we've gotten the orders to move, we've got like 3 weeks and I'm like, whoo, I got to get moving. So
that's great. Without activator, some people would have said 3 weeks to move. That's crazy. And here you are thinking, we've got 3 whole weeks.
3 whole weeks, So yeah, it is very easy. It has been very easy for me to do that. And that's because of that gift, that Woo, that gift of Woo.
I liked earlier when you said you need people, and I like thinking of your Woo as something that needs to be fed. So
Yes.
Are there specific habits or structures that you need to do every day in order to feed that Woo?
Well, I need to be like face to face with people. And one thing that I have learned in my coaching practice is that I use a platform called Zoom, which is similar to what we're doing here with Google Hangouts. And I was worried at first because I used to have an office and I moved my office home. And I was worried initially that, where am I going to get my energy? But if I can get somebody on the computer, I can still hear angels singing, and I can still get that feeling of connection. And I know that my energy transfers, through the computer. And so every day I need to have some type of connection with people. Now, there are days where I have admin days and days where I don't have anything on, booked on my calendar. And so I will say, oh, gotta go out somewhere, even if I go out to the grocery store, I'm at least coming eyeball to eyeball with another person, and I'm picking up that energy. Because that's why we need people. We need people for the energy. That's where we get our energy, is from other people. So yes, that's one of the things I have to have every day, is some connection with people.
Rhonda, I have found too, though, through podcasting for what we're doing here, that I get connectivity without connectivity. So I'm able to influence, again, because we're selling things.
Yes.
So we've got 22 people out in the chat room. There's currently about 32 watching. By the way, if you're not in the chat room, join us in there. We'd love to have you in there. I'm not making that physical connection to them, and yet the influence piece is working because we have found this way. And it was no surprise to me when I encouraged you to start podcasting that you started doing it, because it's like, you're built in that way. And so there's another, for me, I have found, because I used to feel all the time too, like I get energy from people. I sit out in the atrium. For those coming to the summit, you'll get a chance to see our atrium. It's a beautiful location. I claim it as my office in the mornings. I gather the energy from the company as people are moving in and out of that room, and people come sit with me or talk to me. I can gain that energy. But I can also influence and turn that into, we started doing webcasting internally here at Gallup, and I don't have to talk to those people, but I know I'm having this influence. I know what I'm doing is influencing them in some way, that it's reaching out. Now, I have communication as well, and you do too. And so that may play into a little bit of that, where I can satisfy some of that just talking. I don't necessarily always have to have the feedback, but
right.
I want to encourage those with Woo, as we think about this. Don't get caught up talking just to talk. We need to influence and sell and change, right? That is, I think the zing that you feel is because we know we're changing people, right? The best day for us is when someone says, "You changed my mind."
Yes.
Right? And you're like, yes. And so there's those, that's the zing for me. It's not, because I've been in groups where I can't influence, and it's not just about being in groups of people or even being at a party.
True.
I've been in those kinds of situations, and you kind of walk out going, I didn't get a chance to influence, but put me on the stage, like, hey, I got an opportunity to influence, right? And so in leadership, I think it's that combination of being able to get up there and being able to influence people in a new direction or a different direction, right? Where you can change their mind.
Well, and I think what you are combining your communication, and you see me on Facebook, and I do the same thing, and I have a group that I nurture and I woo them. And I think what I'm doing now in the space that I'm in is I'm selling people on themselves. I'm selling them on recognizing how amazing they are and how they can be their very best by learning and developing through how they're naturally gifted. And so that brings great satisfaction to me. If I can get one person who goes, yes, I feel better about myself, I know that it's that zing. And I get it through the internet too. That's why I'm on Facebook is social. And that's what we are as Woos, is we're social.
But it's an incredible influencing tool, right? I can reach people. Maika, when we think about stability, we think about these needs of the followers. Here's another area, big misconception I think about Woo sometimes, is we think we're all about stirring up the crowd, when it's in actuality, oftentimes Woo can bring stability to the crowd by taking charge or taking it over. Now there's a little command in there as well, but of being that person, people sometimes want to be led in that way.
Yes.
They get very uncomfortable in situations where there's no leader. And Maika, maybe you can talk to this a little bit. I find sometimes when I step into a room and there's no direct leadership going on, and I can turn on the influence, people get comfortable. And that provides stability. Maika, can you talk a little bit about that?
I wish I had my thesaurus here in arm's reach. It's over there on my shelf and past a lot of messy things on my desk you can't see. But I'm thinking, I wish I had more words for the word influence, because that is what we're talking about. And that is at the essence. It's at the heart of Woo. It's how do I affect the opinions of other people? And Rhonda, I like that you called out that we also have high communication. Communication is about being understood. Yeah. But think about what Woo can do to take command, how Woo can affect groups of people. It's not by just getting them excited, it's by turning their head towards something.
Right.
And by somehow changing the way that they feel. Now, in the best cases, it's making them feel better, right? Or making them feel comfortable, or making them feel seen or known or understood. But at the heart of it, it is that desire and that ability to affect how other people feel.
Yes. Yes. And, I really love being at networking events and finding someone who doesn't have woo and taking them under my wing and introducing them to people and finding just the right connections for them. That gives us a thrill too. And that's that influence that we love to share with other people. We love to connect other people. It's like we're a conduit for connection.
Yeah.
And so that's a way that we influence also.
We think about, Jim, back to your question, we talked about in the absence of leadership, I'll take over. I think about I can't remember who it was in the chat room. Maybe Teresa said facilitating connections. And there was a time in my life where my title was facilitator. And think about what a great word that is. Being able to be the person who sets that hospitality, that facilitates the environment where people can happen.
Yeah. And I want to be careful. The three of us are all very similar in the way we're built. And we are presenting along one way. There's going to be some individuals who are listening to this who are woo and not our themes, right? They're going to be woo and deliberative, or they're going to be woo and analytical. And this is where people really need to kind of dig in on and figure this out for themselves. How do you maximize? How do you take advantage of that? How does that work out for you? We're giving you some suggestions. We're heavily influenced by the way we come at it. And this is why we're doing webcasts right now, is because we're built that way. Not everybody is built that way. And so I want to be really, really careful as we do all these series, is we're influenced by our themes. And so I think every individual really needs, and I'm wooing you right now, right? Every individual needs to take their own inventory and say, how does it work for me? I got somebody, had an email from somebody today who said, hey, I'm reading the Strengths Insight report. As a parent, they're very used to very standard definitions. And of course, that Strengths Insight report mixes it all up and has influence. That was something completely new for them. But dig into that for you, because you need to make sure, how do you use that woo superpower? And they're all superpowers, by the way.
Sure.
To take advantage of it.
Yeah, I think the question you can ask, regardless of what your other themes are, to stay true to woo, is what is the best way that you influence other people?
Yeah. And where have you been successful, right? I think that's a question where have I been successful in the past?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I do think that woo overall generally needs people. Mm-hmm. And I believe that woo has big energy. I happen to have a client and friend now. We make friends of anyone. So anyway, he has woo and analytical and achiever and some other talents he's nothing like me. Woo is the only thing that we have in common. And yet he still has that energy, and I still see him out there networking, and he happens to be a financial, manager or whatever. And so he's wooing people into understanding their retirement and understanding their, the numbers, and analytical's like not high for me at all. So that would never be a place for me, but we do have that same energy in common and that same need for people. So he's not running a podcast.
Right.
But he's still out there influencing people, just influencing them in another way, in the areas that he's passionate and interested in. So
yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Rhonda, can you think about maybe the best partnerships you've had? How have great partners honored your woo?
Well, I think the best partnership I have is with my husband, and he has woo number 31. And I like to say that he would not have a social life if it were not for me. And I promise you that is absolutely true. And, I think that it's that woo that attracted him, because I'm filling in a gap for him. Right. And he has deliberative number 1, which is my number 31. And so we are absolutely, I think my top 5 are in his bottom 8. And so that's going to be my best partnership. And he has depended on me to really, settle our girls into community as soon as we move. I was a stay-at-home mom for 20 years, which is why I talk about, my girls and moving from city to city, while he was moving up the career path and homeschooled them and that type of thing. But he depended on me, has depended on me being able to make those connections for them. And so I think that the good partnerships that I have had have been with people who are different from me, but who accept who I am. And that's not always easy to find unless you understand. Really, for me, it started coming when I started understanding StrengthsFinder, and I could understand what they needed. They understood what I needed. And so being able to, like my husband will say, now that we're older and our girls are gone and, they're grown up, he'll say, are you going to be home for dinner tonight? It's no longer what's for dinner tonight, because he knows that I need to be out and about in the marketplace, and he knows I get my energy from other people. And here's the other thing is I don't expect him to give me that energy, because frankly, I know that the way he recharges his batteries is by being alone and by being quiet with his intellection and his input and his analytical. And so I think that in partnership, it's finding someone who oftentimes is completely different and a contrast to you, and being respectful and being able to depend on them for certain things, and really understanding who they are, but also understanding who you are. I think it all starts, of course, with understanding who you are in creating partnership. You can't create partnership. Here's why. There's shame involved in what you don't do well unless you accept what you do well. And so you're not going to outsource, you're not going to partner, you're not going to let go of those things that you don't do well unless and until you accept what you do well. And so that's what's going to create the partnership, is really a clear understanding of who you are, what your needs are, and how you operate, so that you can give up those things and create those partnerships. Otherwise, it's got some kind of negative stuff around it,
I love that. There's shame involved in what you don't do well until you accept what you do well.
Exactly. Yeah. I know who I am and I know who I'm not, and both are okay. And that's where you have to get, is to that both are okay. I'm okay that I don't do numbers well. Now that I've farmed out my taxes and, those types of money things. Otherwise, there was indeed shame involved in it. And there's not anymore. I just fully admit, numbers aren't my thing.
Well, there's in leadership too, there's great freedom in actually outsourcing some of those things as a leader you don't do well to some of those members on your team. And this is where it's a little bit different in leadership, is sometimes we think as leaders, we have to be the full package. We have to do everything. We have to be all things. And we know, one, we know that's just not right. And two, we know in teams, it's really, really important oftentimes to be able to find those pieces and in other parts of your team and empower them to be able to do those things, to provide that, I think, that hope and stability inside a team, to say, you know what, guys, I don't have all the pieces. I'm going to need your help. And by the way, I think it builds engagement, right? Getting those other team members involved in what they do best helps build that engagement. If you get those folks lined up, listen, strengths and engagement are not separate things. They are bedfellows, right? They live together, and we can't talk about one without talking about the other. And this is really, really important in that. So it's as we think about these team components, man, we got to recognize that in our team and give them and empower them to be able to do those things. As a leader, we can't. But that's shameful for some leaders, right, Rhonda? I mean, I think that what you said, some leaders feel like they have to have it all together. And that's the difference.
Well, and the reason that they feel that way is because they don't accept who they are. They don't accept who they are fully and their sweet spot. And they don't, they carry around these things that they have to do it all. And think about how much honor you give someone when you allow them to be who they are, and then you depend on them and you lean on them. I lean on my husband and his deliberative and his responsibility and his input and his analytical to take care of the whole of our retirement. I don't even know how to get into my account, but I give that to him to take care of, because that's where he shines. So, for someone looking to us and wanting to empower us, that is empowering us to go out and do what we do best, which is build community, make connections. build a network that's intentional, that can grow our business, grow our company, grow our teams, connect to other departments within the organization to, make those types of connections too.
So here's a Woo specific question around this idea that, you have to know yourself and who you are as well as who you're not.
Mm-hmm.
There's nothing explicit in Woo about long relationships. Very often I feel like we're teaching themes and we contrast Woo and Relator, and we talk about Woo as being a lot of friends and Relator as being a couple very long, depth of relationship. And it's very easy to see one of those as being better than the other. I think that Relator gets a little more love when you talk about it that way.
Right.
So you just described your best partnership as being a pretty long one with your husband there.
27 years.
What is the connection between Woo? How does that help you build a long relationship?
Well, I have long-standing relationships. One of my best friends, I've known her since we were 14, and I'm not going to tell you how many years it is, but it's over 40. And so I do have really deep relationships and long-term relationships. And it's kind of interesting that you should mention that, though, Maika. Every town that we've moved to, every city that we've moved to, and then we move on, I usually keep only one or two close friends from that group. So I still have Relator, even though it's number 23. So I'm still capable of going deep with people. Usually I'm dependent on them to take me deep, though.
That's probably the Woo answer, right? Is that you allow people to be who they are.
Yes. Yeah, that's it. But I'll go as deep as you want, but it's you taking me deep. And I think that's where some of a misunderstanding comes in, is some people who are higher in Relator and lower than Woo, they're waiting for me to go deep with them. And it's like, no, that's your job. You need to take me deep. I'll go deep. But we, generally speaking, cast a wide net, and that's my job. If you kind of look at it in what we're here to do and what we're supposed to be doing, I'm supposed to be making those connections quickly, and a whole lot of them that we can count on for later. Well, count on for now and then count on for later, And so a Relator is going to be taking people deeper and not necessarily really have, they'll take people deeper, but not necessarily have a deeper connection, if that makes sense.
Yeah,
because they're kind of, sometimes they can be closed, like they want to go as deep into you, but they're not going to go deep, allow you to come back in here.
Well, think about it. There's 33 themes other than Relator, and a lot of us without Relator have great relationships.
We do. Right? We do.
It sounds like your Woo is what energizes 27 years of marriage. It's not necessarily what makes you go deeper. It's what keeps it fresh and keeps it new and helps you go to new, less deep places.
That's true. That's true. Although, sometimes I drive my husband crazy with that activator. He's got deliberative, which is risk aversion, and I'm probably the riskiest thing he ever had. I mean, just seriously.
Sounds like it was a risk that worked out.
It's fun. Yeah, it does. It keeps that. I think that Woo and all those other talents, it does keep our relationship fresh and new. And because, he's never going to know what I'm going to do from one minute to the next. He needs my partiness. See?
Everybody does. We all
Hey, we're the life of the. I said we shouldn't say that all the time, right? Life of the party.
Yeah.
But it is helpful. I mean, that aspect is helpful. And in teams, I also often think Woos are good celebrators. And so they're good at getting a team together, and we need those celebrations inside teams, right? I mean, how many teams have you gone to and they're just dead inside? And a Woo leader, or even someone on a team who has those, can bring up that morale. I think it's really important. We talked about engagement here earlier, but that's a really important part of the engagement of a team. And so a leader with Woo can, in their own way, bring that up and do recognition. That's one of my
energize and influence.
Yeah. Yeah, no, right on.
Is it bad to add the word infect? I think sometimes I'm drawn back to, so there was this movie called Contagion probably 5 years ago, and I watched it mistakenly on an airplane. I was on a 7-hour flight and I watched Contagion. It's all about, this outbreak of disease. And I'm sitting here on the plane counting the number of times my hand touched my face. I got super anxious. But that was what I was thinking about earlier this week, Rhonda, when you were talking about how you helped strengths infiltrate a community where it wasn't.
Yes.
And I think a lot of woo is that ability to affect, but also infect, to plant a seed of something that becomes bigger, that goes through your network and goes through ripples to other people's networks and becomes something that all of a sudden everybody's kind of turned their head toward.
Right. And when I moved here to Oklahoma City, it was 9 months. I looked and did not, well, actually it was over a year. I'm sorry. It was right at a year. I could not find a single person, no, not one, who knew what StrengthsFinder was. And I got fed up finally. And I said, I'm going to do a little book study. This is before I got Gallup certified or had any training at all. And so because I had already been introduced to StrengthsFinder for over 3.5 years, it came in through my church. That's how I got introduced to this movement. And so I did a book study and it caught on like fire. Like over 100 people went through one of my book studies in about a 5-month time period. And they just kept calling, hey, when are you going to do that next one? And I'm like, okay, I'll do a next one. And that's what kind of put me into coaching, is because people said, you've got to do this, And so, that thousands and thousands of people now in Oklahoma City have taken the StrengthsFinder assessment. It's so exciting to have seen that happen. And at some points, people will sit down at a networking event, just meeting not networking, but at a coffee, like a one-on-one, and they'll go, so what are your top 5? And that's how they start the conversation off. And I just had a picture posted. Someone posted a picture yesterday of a real estate organization that I have worked with here. And there were 4 of them in the room. And they said, we're getting to know each other by learning our strengths. And there they were, just this picture talking about StrengthsFinder. And so it's exciting to know, that influence has rippled out. And it's not just through me now, it's through other people who have woo and who have communication or who have anything and have caught the fire and caught the excitement of this movement. So it's been really fun and satisfying from that standpoint.
It's winning, isn't it? There's something about winning.
It is winning others over. And, Jim, I wanted to go back to the point you made before about how woos can go in and energize a team that's, maybe lagging. And we were talking too earlier about how not all woos are the same, and that's true even here with the woos that I know. Like I have a friend who is a woo. She says her top 5 are woo, 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 and woo. And she's absolutely a woo girl. And she loves those big networking events that have 200 and 300 people. And I really prefer to have them where there's 40 or 50. When I get over that many people, I don't feel like I'm making the connection like I want to. And it does feel dissatisfying because I see the people walking out the door that I didn't get to make the connection with. And so there's something about that doesn't feel good for me.
No, that makes sense though to you. And knowing that, right, you can point yourself, hey, I want to keep my groups in this size. I can honestly do either. So, our difference is a ranger, and that may have some kind of play in that. But I love the big groups. I love the smaller groups. I love the really small groups. I tend to get 2 or 3 together. And sometimes that's even more fun. It just kind of depends on kind of what we're doing. Or think of it in terms of influence. Where can I have the greatest impact? And so I'll oftentimes think about those conversations. We talked about Zoom a little bit earlier. Those conversations oftentimes need to be face-to-face because I want to have max influence. And I can't do that through an email, or I can't do that through a text message, or I can't do that through IM. I need to see that person's face. We're readers of body language.
Yes.
I need to know where they're going so that I can influence in that way. And so it doesn't matter if I think I can meet one person and have this maximum influence with one person, I'm okay with that. Sometimes it may take 40 or 50, or sometimes it might be 1,000. I mean, I'm just as comfortable on the stage at the summit with 1,000 people as I would be in front of 50 or in front of 5 or in front of 1. But it's understanding and knowing where that influence is going and what it's doing, and where's the right place. And I think Maximizer plays into that with us.
I'm sure.
Where do we maximize? Where is that message best maximized? And then how do we influence like crazy?
Well, and I love those big groups too. I just don't work them like my friend does. Like, she goes and touches every single person in that group, whereas I'm more likely to find two or three people that I know and then start bringing them in. And before you know it, I have a small group around me, and I'm of course entertaining or, telling stories or
Trying
something.
to anyways. We think we are. Sometimes we're not, but we think we are.
That's right. That's exactly right. But that's where I have really, and I think that it's incumbent upon everyone who has woo to be able to identify exactly where their greatest impact is. And for me, I know that my greatest impact is in the front of the room of about 40 people or less. When it gets bigger than that, can I do it? Yes. But it's almost, Jim, and I don't know, maybe you can help me out here. It's almost like a performance as opposed to a genuine connection.
Yeah. But I think that you're sensing that, right? You're kind of tuning that. You're kind of like, hey, this is where I'm most comfortable. And of course, you're going to be most effective where you're most comfortable, right?
Sure.
And so it's just, I'm super comfortable behind the mic, and that drives people crazy. There are people who don't want to hear their own voice. That's a nightmare if we recorded them, right?
But there's no one who doesn't want to hear Jim's voice. So it works.
That's what I think anyways.
Jim is our favorite, Although, Micah, I think you're giving him a run for the money. I'm just going to
try to. I try to every day. That I wake up and think, how can I be more favorited than Jim?
How can I unseat that Collison guy? Micah, we just have a few minutes left here. Anything else we want to throw in as we wrap this up?
Yeah, I just have one last burning question for you, Rhonda. Thinking about woo specific to leadership and everything that you've done to build your own self-awareness around this theme, and also knowing it as a coach, what kind of advice would you give another leader with woo? What do you feel like they would really need to know?
Well, I do believe, just as we were talking about a moment ago, is that they need to know where they are the most influential, where and how they are most influential, and which of their other themes are they going to use to build that influence. And so, I have done some kind of interesting things to build my influence. Like, I have pink hair. I don't know if anybody can see that, but this is intentional. And because it makes me more approachable by millennials. You just can't even imagine how many millennials go, cool hair, ma'am, And so it's learning that your woo is designed to influence, and then using it appropriately to influence. But it takes awareness, and it takes awareness of all your other themes and how you're using it. And I think that for leadership, finding your best space and then working there as much as possible is going to help you grow your business, grow your relationships, grow your network, and really impact the world around you. And that's what we're all about.
You are designed to influence. That's cool. That sounds almost divine, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much, Rhonda, for sharing your own self and for all the discovery I think that you did leading up to this. It really made you a very rich, well-informed, super fun to listen to guest today. So thanks for being with us.
Thank you for having me.
We will remind everyone to take full advantage of all the resources we have available at the Gallup Strength Center. Just GallupStrengthCenter.com. You can send us your comments or questions. If you'd like to turn your woo into some blogging, that could work as well. If you got 400 to 600 words in your head that you just need to get out, and I know that's a struggle for us woo people. We'd rather talk it out sometimes than write it out, but maybe you have that. You got that writer inside you. Put it together, send it to us, coaching@gallup.com. Put guest blogger in the subject line. Micah will review that. We may be able to use that on our coach's blog. You can also catch the recorded audio and video of this program, as well as all the past ones. There was a comment in chat about that, and I think sometimes people think these are only available live. We have them available in podcast form. We have them available on YouTube. Just search Theme Thursday, put the name of the theme you're looking for, and then we have, in most cases, we have 3 seasons. I guess we're halfway through this season or so. And so we'll at least have 2 seasons for you, and you can go back and review those other ones. Last year, Maika and I spent a lot of time digging into each one of those themes, so you might want to catch season 2. If you're interested in becoming a Gallup Certified Strengths Coach, we mentioned that a couple times. You can see a list of all the courses that lead to that. Courses.gallup.com is the place to go. Don't forget the Gallup or the Clifton Strengths Summit is coming up as well, July 17th, 18th, and 19th. If you're listening to this in between now and then, we just released breakout sessions, so those are available for you. If you want to see what's going on there, you can still register. It's not too late. Love to have you join us. Check out CliftonStrengthsSummit.com. If you found this helpful, we'd ask that you share it. I want to thank everyone for coming out today. Great conversations, by the way. Great influence. And with that, we'll say goodbye, everybody.